Hi, this is Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel, and welcome to today's video podcast episode of Legal Scrubs. Today I want to talk about a provision that needs to be in your physician employment agreement, and you need to make sure when you are negotiating with your group at the outset to have this provision in your agreement. And that provision is what happens and how do you notify your patients when you leave the group. Now, it may seem odd to focus on leaving the group and what happens to your patients upon departure when you are just getting ready to start with the group, but it's important to do this. Under Tennessee law and under the rules of the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners, if a physician departs a group, the patients that that doctor has seen within the past 36 months have to be notified of that physician's departure from the group, unless a patient in that universe of patients you've seen in the past 36 months has only seen you once or 0 times within the past 18 months. So if they've seen you at least twice within the previous 18 months, you have to notify everyone in that group that you've seen in the past 36 months. So how is that notice provided? Well, the rules say that the employment agreement governs how that notice is provided to the patients. Now, you probably, as an employed physician and in your group, don't want to just leave it to the tender mercies of your group to provide the notice to your patients when you leave the group, without your having any say-so in how that notice is provided. And so on the front end, when you're negotiating your contract, your employment contract with your group, you want to pay some attention to the provision dealing with notice to your patients if and when you depart or leave the group practice. So if you don't have a provision in your employment agreement, or if the provision simply says that the group practice will notify your patients, what happens is the group practice will be required to notify your patients that you are leaving, but they don't need to tell your patients where you're going or how to find you or anything like that. It will basically just say you left the group and this other doctor that's in the group is going to be taking you on as a patient, unless you tell us otherwise that you want to have your record sent somewhere else, something along those lines. Now, the Tennessee rule does provide that the choice of physicians in every case should be left to the patient, and the patient should be informed that upon authorization, his or her records will be sent to the physician of the patient's choice. So the notice should say something along those lines. So if your patients really love you and say, I want this doctor to get my records, then the group should honor that and really has to honor that request. But they can make it a little more difficult if the employment agreement doesn't provide some of the details of the notice that would be provided to the patients. In other words, it may put the onus or the burden upon your patients to say, I want this doctor, tell me where he is, or I want this doctor, send my records to him or her. So it's much simpler, and it's the best time when you're negotiating your contract to have some provisions in your contract that provides for notice to your patients when or if you leave or depart the group practice. So you probably want to have some notice requirement that you both have mutually agreed in good faith upon the language in the notice to patients. You may want to have specifically that your patients will be notified of your new address and where you are practicing, and you may actually want to be the one to send the notice to your patients, but you may not. You may want to leave it to the group, but just have an agreed upon format for that notice, including specifically where you are. Anyway, I hope that helps. When you're doing your contract with your group, pay some attention to what happens and who notifies your patients when and if you leave the group. Hope that helps, and we'll see you next time on Legal Scrubs.